Welcome to our Bird of Prey presentation coming to you from Nanjemoy Creek Environmental Education Center, a Charles County Public School facility. I'm Mike Callahan,
And I'm John Sullins.
and today we're going to share with you our live birds of prey, also known as raptors. I hope you enjoy learning about these important birds and that afterwards you'll share what you've learned with others. Welcome to our raptor courtyard. Behind us is our red-tailed hawk, which you'll get to meet close up a little later. So, what is it, John, that makes a bird a raptor?
Well, Mike, some characteristics of a raptor include sharp talons to capture its prey, acute eyesight to find its prey, and a sharp curved beak to rip its prey.
Well, that word raptor actually comes from a loose translation in Latin of the word seize. So they seize their prey using those strong muscular legs and those sharp toenails called talons to grab and hold the prey in place. Think of it as how you eat meat. You use a fork and a knife. Think of the talons as the fork to hold the food in place, and think of the knife as the beak to cut up the prey.
Hey, Mike, is it time to meet the birds?
Sure, let's go meet the raptors.
We have an eastern screech owl here, and the eastern screech owl comes in 3 different colors or morphs. We have a gray, like the one here, a red, and a brown. So this bird lives in the woods, and if you have enough trees in your backyard, you could put up a nest box because it's a cavity nester, and it will live in that box in your backyard. So the diet of an eastern screech owl is going to consist of small animals like mice or voles. Also, it may take a big insect like a grasshopper or a moth, and sometimes it might eat a small lizard or a small snake or a small frog too. Notice the feather tufts above this screech owl's eyes. Scientists believe they're there for camouflage. Camouflage is going to help this bird kind of blend into its surroundings. Remember, it lives in the woods. Now I'd like to demonstrate how well this bird blends in to its surroundings. Watch. Now you see it. Now you don't. So this bird came to us from the Patuxent Wildlife Research Center, and they needed to get rid of some of their animals, and we were fortunate enough to get this one. The call of this bird sounds like the whinny of a horse. It doesn't screech. Let's take a listen. A raptor's beak is one characteristic used to set them apart from other birds. All raptors have the same beak design, curved at the tip with a sharp cutting edge to tear apart their prey. The beaks have evolved over time based on the type of prey eaten. Talons are their other characteristic that make these birds different. Talons are sharp-hooked claws at the end of the toes. Birds have talons on the end of every toe. They use them for catching food. Raptors usually have 3 toes pointing forward and 1 toe pointing backwards. But some raptors have the special ability to rotate one of their toes backwards, leaving 2 in the front and 2 in the back. And that's important. It makes it easier for them to grip things like branches or prey. You may notice on this foot that the feathers go all the way down to the toe. And on this leg, there's no feathers down to the toe. It depends on the species when feathers are present. Feathers provide extra protection from cold or injury. Another adaptation that raptors have are the rough pads on the bottom of their feet. It feels almost like sandpaper. This roughness allows them to grip the prey better. This is especially important in birds like ospreys and eagles, which are catching slippery fish.
This bird is a barred owl, and it gets its name from the pattern of barred feathers across its chest, wings, and back. You'll notice they go across here at the top and up and down here. And if I turn him to the side, you'll notice they're also on the wings here and on the tail and the back as well. The Chesapeake Bay region provides perfect habitat for this species of owl because it requires woods and water next to each other. The barred owl's diet consists of crayfish, frogs, toads, mammals up to the size of a squirrel, and birds up to the size of a crow. Just like the eastern screech owl, the barred owl blends in really well with its surroundings. Check this out. This bird comes to us from Owl Moon Raptor Rehab Center. It was found in Savage State Forest in Garrett County, and it was believed that it got hit by an ATV and was found on the trail. It's blind in its right eye, and the vet had to remove its eye completely, so it could never be released. The barred owl's call is put to the words, "Who cooks for you?" who cooks for you all, which makes it easy to remember. Let's take a listen. Notice the location of the eyes of an owl compared to a hawk. Hawk's eyes are on the side of the skull, and owl's eyes are on the front of the skull. Also notice the eye sockets of the owls are fused. Unlike other birds, owls have no eye muscles that would allow them to move their eyes in socket like we can. So in order to look over their shoulder, an owl must turn its head because its eyes cannot move. Owls have 14 vertebrae in their necks, which is twice the number we have. This allows them to turn their head 270 degrees, whereas we can only turn our head 180 degrees. An owl cannot turn its head 360 degrees because that would mean their neck was broken and their spinal cord twisted. This is a barn owl. Notice the heart-shaped facial disc. That facial disc gives it some of the best hearing in the animal kingdom. Also, you'll notice it's got brown marks below its eyes. This adaptation helps reduce the glare from the setting sun and the rising moon as it glides across the fields and marshes in search of its prey. It's listed as an endangered species in Maryland due to loss of habitat. The habitat is marshes, meadows, and fields, and it can also be found nesting in barns where it gets its name. The diet of a barn owl consists of small mammals and birds up to the size of a red-winged blackbird. This barn owl comes to us from another nature center. As you can see, she's a partial amputee. The call of the barn owl is a piercing, screechy, screaming call. It's often the cause of many ghost stories because of that sound. Imagine yourself entering an old abandoned house. As you get into the door, out of the corner of your eye, you see a flash of white, which is the flash of the underwings and belly of the owl, and then all of a sudden you hear a piercing, screaming sound. It's where the nickname ghost owl comes from, and also where the name banshee owl in some parts of the world comes from. Let's take a listen to the call of the barn owl. As a nocturnal animal, hearing is very important to an owl's survival. Unlike most mammals, birds do not have earlobes, so an owl's facial disc is the adaptation that makes up for that lack of an earlobe. The facial disc is made up of two circular sections shaped like a parabola, which is the same shape as a satellite dish. They collect sound waves and direct the sounds to the ears, which are located behind the disc. Another adaptation that allows an owl to hear better than most birds is that, unlike us, their ears are asymmetrical, which means they are not directly opposite each other, but off-center. One is higher and the other is lower on the skull. This allows them to triangulate and home in exactly on where the sounds are coming from.
Here on the poster, you can see the barn owl flying in from afar to catch its prey. Once it captures a small vole or mouse, it decides if it's going to swallow it whole, or if it's too large, rip it into bite-sized pieces. After the owl swallows the food, it will go into the first of two stomachs. That's right, raptors have two stomachs. The first one is called a proventriculus. Here, the indigestible parts are compressed and formed into a pellet. The digestible parts pass through the proventriculus into the second stomach, where it is digested completely. When the proventriculus is full, the owl is going to cast up the pellets onto the ground. Pellets are produced by all birds that consume their prey whole. Birds have an amazing adaptation of producing a pellet. Most adult owls will produce 2 pellets per day. Pellets are not scat. They have not passed through the digestive system. Pellets are composed of the indigestible parts of their prey, including teeth, fur, feathers, and bones. Our samples today show fur and bones. This one clearly shows a mandible or jawbone and a leg bone, probably of a small rodent or mammal that the bird has eaten. This is a bone sorting chart. You see drawings of bones from different raptor prey. Scientists and citizen scientists use these charts during a pellet dissection. A pellet dissection is where you look inside the pellets to determine what the raptors have been eating in that habitat. An interesting fact about barn owls, unlike other birds, is that they lay their eggs in late winter and early spring when the weather is still cold and prey is harder to find. Because of this, the barn owl will begin incubating its eggs as soon as they are laid. This can lead to as much as a 1 to 2 week difference in the chicks' ages when they hatch. This relieves some of the hunting burden off the parents, and if prey is scarce, the oldest chick will consume the youngest in order to survive. And this is called siblicide. Can you guess which one is the youngest in the picture? Let me give you a hint. The best clue to look for is how developed the feathers and facial disc are. Let's see how you did. I believe the chicks on the left are the older ones because they have well-developed facial discs and well-developed wing feathers. The two chicks on the right are younger because they're full of downy feathers and their facial discs aren't as well developed. This is a red-tailed hawk. It gets its name from the red tail feathers. When it's born, its tail feathers aren't red, they're brown. As it matures and molts, they slowly turn red. By the age of 2, they won't change anymore and it'll be completely red. The red-tailed hawk is going to hunt during the day. There's a science word for that. It's called diurnal. And that's one of the reasons why we see this bird most often in Maryland, because it hunts in meadows and open fields. So you'll see it on the telephone wires quite often. The diet of this bird consists of mammals up to the size of a squirrel, birds up to the size of a crow, and it will even eat a snake on occasion. So this bird comes to us from a falconer who used this bird for hunting. While hunting one day, it broke its wing and it went to the vet. The vet repaired it, but the falconer couldn't use it anymore. The call that the red-tailed hawk makes sounds like keer. The call of this bird is often used in movies to replace the call of a bald eagle because it sounds more majestic. Let's take a listen and see what you think.
Have you ever heard a bird flap its wings? Most birds make sound when they're flapping. That's because the leading edge of their wing feathers is stiff with a straight edge. Birds that are diurnal do not need to have silent flight because they can be easily seen. This is the wing of a red-shouldered hawk. Owl wing feathers are different. The leading edge of the feather is shaped like a comb. When air hits the wing, the sound is muffled. This is important because owls are nocturnal hunters, which means they hunt at night, and they need to be able to sneak up on their prey. Also, silent wings do not interfere with their ability to hear their prey's movement. This is the wing of a barred owl. Now that you've seen the leading edge of the red-shouldered hawk and the barred owl wing close up, let me demonstrate a difference in the sound as they flap. First, you're going to hear the red-shouldered hawk flap its wing, followed by the barred owl flapping its. You may have noticed the difference in the sound. The red-shouldered hawk, which is on the bottom, was louder than the barred owl, which is the wing on the top. This is an adult bald eagle, is recognized by its white head and tail. The name bald eagle comes from the Old English word spelled B-A-L-D-E, which meant white. A young bald eagle has all brown feathers with a little bit of white here and there on the wings, chest, and back until it reaches its 4th to 5th year, at which time the white head and tail are completely molted. The diet of the bald eagle consists of fish, waterfowl, and mammals up to about the size of a young river otter. This bird came to us from a wildlife rehab center in Madison, Wisconsin, where it was less than a year old. It was discovered that it was blind on its left eye, and that's why it can't survive in the wild. The call of the bald eagle sounds like a squeaky wheel, which is why Hollywood often dubs its call with that of the red-tailed hawk. Let's have a listen.
You may be wondering why I have an eagle skull and a ping pong ball. The ping pong ball is roughly the same size as a human eye. Interestingly enough, the eagle eye is the same size, but shaped more like a grape. You can say the ping pong ball just about fits into the eye socket of the eagle. The reason eagles need such large eyes is because acute vision is so critical to their survival. Eagles can spot a rabbit about 3 miles away and focus on an ant moving at 10 stories high. Locating prey quickly can mean the difference between life and death for an eagle. This is a cross-section of a raptor's skull. The blue areas represent the eyes, and the red area represents the brain. As you can see, the brain takes up a much smaller proportion of the total skull area. Don't be fooled into thinking the raptors aren't smart, though. They rely on instincts to survive.
What do you say we take a hike back in time to learn about the history of the eagle as our country's national symbol? Here we are in front of one of the cabins in the courtyard at Nanjemoy Creek Environmental Education Center, where we're going to learn about how the bald eagle became our country's national symbol. Shortly after the Continental Congress declared independence in 1776, they tasked Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams with the duty of coming up with a national symbol. All three met and came up with plans, but neither of their plans were accepted by Congress. In fact, two more committees were formed, and neither of their plans were accepted either. It wasn't until 1782 that Secretary of Congress Charles Thompson was tasked to do it again. So he combined all three committees' plans, put together the best from each one, and switched out the white eagle for the bald eagle. So it was Mr. Thompson who actually chose the bald eagle to be in our national seal. So in 1782, that's when Congress voted for the eagle as our national symbol, which we know it as today. You might have heard some stories, though, about Ben Franklin wanting the wild turkey over the bald eagle for our national symbol. Well, there's no record or evidence whatsoever that Mr. Franklin petitioned Congress to stop the eagle from being our symbol. Although in 1784, he did write a letter to his daughter saying that the bald eagle was a bird of bad moral character. And that's probably because it stole and scavenged for a living.
Thank you for joining us here at Nanjemoy Creek Environmental Education Center for our Raptor program. We had a great time. Hope you learned a few new things too. Till next time, we'll see you then.